My eyes are little moist, seeing the free-flying birds. These are the tears of happiness. Thanks to the fearless leaders who faced it all, making tough times pass by. There are many things can't be lived without, but freedom is what I cherish the most without any doubt. Good afternoon to Professor Singh, worthy Vice Chancellor, Professor B.S. Satyal, Honorable Registrar, Professor Dr. Neena Mehta, Dean Student Welfare, colleagues, faculty, and students who have joined online. It gives me immense pleasure to share that today, with freedom in mind, faith in words, pride in heart, and memories in our soul, we have gathered for the launch of celebrations of India's 75 years of independence by organizing a webinar on India's freedom struggle, AZADI Ka Amrut Mahotsav. Freedom is Freedom is the oxygen of soul, and we had to pay a very heavy price for it. As we all are aware of our freedom struggle, I will be briefly going through the timeline of events from struggle to independence. As we all are aware that the British came to India in the 16th century as traders to buy spices and cloth. By 1600 AD, they set up the East India Company with trading centers at Calcutta, Surat, Madras, and Bombay. Gradually, they became very powerful and spread their rule all over to India. The British brought goods at very low prices, and as a result of it, the British came on becoming richer and richer, while the Indians started becoming poorer and poorer. They ruled over India for a span of almost 200 years. The dissatisfaction and anger of the Indians burst in the form of a revolt. The revolt was initiated when a few soldiers in Meerut, they refused to use the British rifle called Enfield, believing that the cartridges that were used were smeared with the fat of cow and buffalo. The revolt slowly spread to other parts of the country. Some of the leaders of this is the picture showing the revolt at Meerut. Some of the leaders of the revolt were Nana Sahib from Kanpur, Tantya Tope Bundelkhand, Rani Lakshmi Bai Jhansi, Bhagat Mahal Lucknow, and Bahadur Shah Zafar of Delhi. Bahadur Shah Zafar was also the last Mughal emperor, as we all are aware. So at this time, India could not gain freedom because the Indians were not united, and moreover, the British had a very well organized army, so the Indian could not stand before it. However, the revolt had lighted a flame in the minds of the Indian people. The people began to think about their weaknesses and how they could overcome their shortcomings, and they started forming association institutions, and they came up with the Indian National Congress in the year 1885. And the purpose of this organization was to make the British aware of the problems that are being faced by the Indians. Moreover, Indians wanted more share in the administration of the country. The leaders of this Congress believed in the methods of patience and persuasion, and they were known as moderates. So these are the leaders of the Indian National Congress: W.C. Banerjee, Dadabhai Naroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, S.N. Banerjee, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Some of other leaders like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal believed in strong action against British for freedom to India. The British followed the policy of divide and rule to weaken the freedom movement of Indians. They followed this policy on Bengal. It was divided by the British into two major parts, the Hindu majority and the Muslim majority. As a protest against the partition of Bengal, the Swadeshi movement was started by the Indians, and the countrymen were asked to stop using the British goods. As a result of this, the British had to cancel the partition of Bengal in the year 1911. In 1914, there was the First World War. The Indian soldiers fought the war in Europe with the hope that when war was ended, the British would give them freedom in India. But actually, this did not happen. The British further strengthened their rule in India. It was around this time that Mahatma and became the leader of freedom struggle in which he involved masses. After this, as we all are aware, there was the massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, where around 20,000 men, women, and children were attending a meeting, and there was fire in which many of them were injured and wounded and killed also. So, as a protest against the Jallianwala massacre, a non-cooperation movement was initiated by Mahatma Gandhi. It was decided to disobey the British laws. So in this, thousands of men and women, they left their jobs to join the movement, and students from colleges and schools also left the colleges and schools to join the movement. These are some of the leaders of this movement: Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sarojini Naidu, Shri Maulana Abul Azad Kalam, Mahatma Gandhi, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad. In 1928, the Simon Commission was boycotted by the general public, and Lala Lajpat Rai was martyred by the British lathi charge. In 1929, the Indian National Congress took a historic decision in Lahore, where they decided that they wanted Puran Swaraj, or complete freedom. The British passed another law in which tax was levied on salt. However, Mahatma Gandhi opposed this movement, and he started walking from his ashram in Sabarmati on this very day, the 12th March in 1930, and he reached Dandi, which is on the sea coast, and he made salt over there just to show that he did not agree with the laws of British. So that is why this day has been chosen for the launch of celebrations of India's 75 years of independence. So there were many revolutionary leaders like Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Sukhdev, and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who believed that peaceful methods of the British. In 1942, the Congress launched Quit India movement, in which British were asked to leave India. And in 1947, the British realized that they would no longer be tolerated. So on 15th August, India became free, and it was divided into two countries, India and Pakistan. So I would like to conclude with the famous lines of Firaq Gorakhpuri, Sar Zamine Hind par, awame alam ke firaq, काफिले बसते गए हिंदुस्तान बनता गया. India, a land of diverse culture, religion, and beliefs. I love you, my motherland. Thank you. I would now like to invite Dr. Gurfateh, Head, University School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, to share a poem with us.
It is my privilege to be here. Honorable Chancellor Sardar Govind Singh Barai, Vice Chancellor Dr. Pravinder Singh, our registrars are Professor Nina and all other my dears, HODs, head departments. So I thanks to the organizing secretary to give me the opportunity to speak on the topic of Indian freedom fighters. So Indian freedom fighter struggles, we are celebrating the 75th years of independence. AZADI ka AMRUT MAHOTSAV, India government independence on, you know that in 15 August 1947. And Khilafat, civil disobedience and Dandi March movements and final phase of the freedoms was planned by the youth leader, revolutionary leader, Sardar Bhagat Singh Ji. And freedom fighters fought against the protections of the peoples from the injustice, exploitations, cruelty of the Britishers. And freedom fighters motivated the peoples for their rights and powers, and for motivated the all peoples for their motherlands. And freedom fighters also motivate the peoples, inspire the people, encourage the peoples to work for their country due to their the patriotisms. Mahatma Gandhi, father of the nations, everybody knows, he was saying in the world that work is worship, truth and non-violence, where is war his weapon to fight against the Britishers. So lot of freedom fighters we have in the Punjab as well as in India. Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru sir, he was the first Prime Minister of India. He was impressed with the Gandhi sir, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Rani Lakshmi Bai, and Bhagat Singh was the revolutionary hero of the Indian independence movement. Bhagat Singh also formed the Naujawan Bharat Sabha. Udham Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad, lot of, you have the freedom. I really, that is the thing that the every freedom fighters, whatever they contributed a lot to that free, to become a free of that India from the Britishers. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਕੁਝ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਜ਼ਾ ਕਰਾਵੇਗਾ। ਸੂਰਾ ਸੋ ਪਹਿਚਾਨੀਏ ਜੋ ਲੜੇ ਦੀਨ ਕੇ ਹੇਤ, ਪੁਰਜਾ ਪੁਰਜਾ ਕੱਟ ਮਰੇ ਕਬਹੂ ਨਾ ਛਾੜੇ ਖੇਤ, ਗਗਨ ਦਮਾਮਾ ਬਾਜਿਓ ਪਰਿਓ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੇ ਘਾਓ, खेत जो मांड्यो सूरमा अब जूझन को दाओ, शहीदों की चिताओं पर लगेंगे हर बरस मेले, वतन पर मरने वालों का यही बाकी निशा होगा। दर्द मंद नूं दर्द दी दर्द हुंदी ते हिंदुस्तानी नूं हिंदुस्तान दी दर्द हुंदी, बेदर्द नूं दर्द दी दर्द कीए, हिंदुस्तानी हिंदुस्तान दी दर्द नूं जाणदा है ते स्वदेशी की जाणदे हिंदुस्तान दी मिट्टी दी कदर कीए, जिन्ना मुख मैदान चो मोड़ लिता, जिन्ना मुख अपनी धरती मां तो मोड़ लिता, उन्हों आखना किसी ने मर्द कीए, पानी लखा मना भावें पा विखो, बुझनी नहीं लगी दिलों विच हिंदुस्तान आजाद करवाउण दी सरद कीए, बुझनी नहीं लगी दिलों विच हिंदुस्तान आजाद करवाउण दी सरद कीए। मैं हुण एक होर कविता ਦੇ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਯੋਧਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਭੇਟ ਅਰਪਣ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰ ਨੇ ਖੂਨ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ, ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਮਹਾਤਮਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ, ਭਗਤ ਸਿੰਘ, ਮੰਗਲ ਪਾਂਡੇ, ਸੁਭਾਸ਼ ਚੰਦਰ ਬੋਸ ਤੇ ਰਾਣੀ ਲక్ష్ਮੀ ਨਹਿਰੂ ਜੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ, ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਭਗਤ, ਤਿਲਕ, ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰੀ, ਸੁਖਦੇਵ ਤੇ ਰਾਜਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਇਸ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਨੂੰ ਬੂਟੇ ਨੂੰ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੰਬਰੀ ਜਾਤ ਸੰਜੋਇਆ, ਵਿੱਚ ਅੰਬਰੀ ਜਾਤ ਸੰਜੋਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਨੇ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ, ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਅੱਲਾ ਰਾਮ ਰਹੀਮ ਨੇ ਸੀ ਬੜੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਵਰਸਾਈ, ਤਾਈਓ ਇਹ ਨਿੱਗੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਸੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਕੁਇਟ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਬੂਟੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਕੇ, ਕੁਇਟ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਤੇ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਬੂਟੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਭਗਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰੀ ਤੇ ਚੰਦਰ ਸ਼ੇਖਰ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਲੜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀ ਪਰੋਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਇਹ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਥੰਮ ਖਲੋਇਆ, ਇਹ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਥੰਮ ਖਲੋਇਆ। ਇੰਡੀਆ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਨੇ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਸ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਿਖ ਕੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਚੇ ਮੁਕਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਸੀ ਛੋਇਆ। ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਿਖ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਚੇ ਮੁਕਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਸੀ ਛੋਇਆ। ਕਈ ਬਣੇ IAS IPS ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜੱਜਸ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਮੈਨ ਤੇ ਵਾਈਸ ਚਾਂਸਲਰ ਤੇ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਬਰੋਡ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਝੰਡਾ ਸੀ ਗੜੋਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਨੇ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਵਾਹ ਵਾਹ ਉਹ ਤੇਰੀ ਕਰਾਮਾਤ ਦਾਤਿਆ, ਤਾਈਓ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਸੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਸਿਫਤ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਮਹਾਤਮਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ, ਭਗਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਰਾਜਗੁਰੂ ਲక్ష్ਮੀ ਬਾਈ ਸਭ ਦੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਮਕਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਛੋਇਆ। ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਖੁਦ ਮੁਖਤਿਆਰ ਬਣਾਇਆ। ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਸੀ ਚਮਕਾਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। 75ਵੇਂ ਸਾਲਾ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਸਮਾਰੋਹ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ, 75ਵੇਂ ਸਾਲਾ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਸਮਾਰੋਹ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਮਹੋਤਸਵ ਸੀ ਕਰਵਾਇਆ। ਸੁੱਗਾ ਕਰੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦਾਤਿਆ, ਰਿਆਤ ਬਾਹਰਾ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਕਰੇ ਅਰਜ਼ੋਈ ਦਾਤਿਆ। ਦਿਨ ਦੁੱਗਣੀ ਰਾਤ ਚੌਗਣੀ ਤਰੱਕੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਰਿਆਤ ਬਾਹਰਾ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੀ, ਇਹੀ ਮੰਤਰ ਸੀ ਸੁੱਗੇ ਨੇ ਦਰੜੋਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਨੱਕ ਮਸਤਕ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਫਰੀडम ਸਟਰਗਲਸ ਤੇ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਸੂਰਬੀਰਾਂ ਦਾ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਦੌਲਤ ਅੱਜ 75ਵਾਂ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਆਤ ਬਾਹਰਾ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਸੀ ਮਨਾਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਮਾਨਯੋਗ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਗੁਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਾਹਰਾ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਅਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਪ੍ਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਵਾਈਸ ਚਾਂਸਲਰ ਦਾ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਦੌਲਤ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਸਟੇਜ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਸੀਸ ਨਵਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਸਿਫਤ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀ ਦੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਾਜ ਭਾਗ ਸੀ ਦਵਾਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਫਰੀडम ਫਾਈਟਰਾਂ ਦਾ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਾਏ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੇ ਬੂਟੇ ਦੀ ਨਿੱਕੀ ਛਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਫਲ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਭ ਨੇ ਸੀ ਲੁਤਫ ਉਠਾਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬੂਟਾ ਅੱਜ ਫਲ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਮੈਂ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਪੂਰੀ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ, ਮੈਨੇਜਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ, ਕਿ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ 75ਵੇਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਸ ਡੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਸਰਤਾਜ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬਾਨ, ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਸਟਰਗਲਸ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਆਯੋਜਿਤ ਕਰਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਤਹਿ ਦਿਲ ਤੋਂ। ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Thank you, Gurfateh sir, for your inspirational poem. I now request Professor B.S. Satyal, a worthy his views with us. He will be speaking on freedom movement in Punjab.
Thank you, Dr. Navneet. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Parvinder Singh ji, all heads and faculty members, teachers, students who are online attending to this important of India's freedom struggle, AZADI ka AMRUT MAHOTSAV. As Dr. Navneet has rightly pointed out, that today is an historical day when Mahatma Gandhi on 12th March 1930 started with the Dandi March, and India has planned 75 weeks earlier than the 15th August 2020, when we'll be celebrating the 75th anniversary of Independence Day. I will be speaking on the freedom movement in Punjab. We all know that when Britishers came in India in 1757, after the debacle of Indians in the Battle of Plassey, the rest of India was ruled by Britishers for almost 200 years. But the Punjab was annexed in 1849, and as such, the Britishers could rule the Punjab from 1849 to 1947. The total comes out to be just 98 years. And as Dr. Navneet was saying to us, that it was in 1857 when Indians fought for the independence. They waged the war, they waged a mutiny in 1857, led by Rani Lakshmi Bai and others, Bahadur Shah Jafar. But so it took 100 years for the rest of the Indians to go for the freedom struggle. But in Punjab, when I say Punjab, Punjab means the entire Haryana of today, Himachal Pradesh of today, and the parts of Punjab which are now in Pakistan. So the entire Punjab, when it was annexed in 1849, started for the freedom movement from the day one it was annexed. The history says that it was one Maharaj Singh who wanted to free the Prince Duleep Singh from the clutches of Britishers. He had made a plan to free Prince Duleep Singh and allow Prince Duleep Singh and Rani Jinda, the wife of Maharaja, to lead the Punjab. But unfortunately, the mission was foiled by the Britishers. He was sent to jail and imprisoned in Rangoon and was tortured to death in 1856. As we all know that Mahatma Gandhi started the non-cooperation movement against British colonists in 1920. Now this is a well-documented chapter in India's freedom struggle. But most of the people do not know that in Punjab, Baba Ram Singh Ji has started practicing this movement much earlier in 1850s and 60s. 50 years before the Father of Nation's initiation. Mahatma Gandhi later used the concepts of non-cooperation and civil disobedience propounded by Baba Ram Singh Ji as a political weapon against the British. Baba Ram Singh Ji in the year 1856 had set up a socio-religious movement for the liberation of the then Punjab to free ourselves from the clutches of Britishers. And on the Baisakhi of 1856, he had organized a big congregation in which he established Sant Khalsa on lines of the dictates of Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru, with a caution that we adopt a peaceful ways for the liberation of our country. He started his own, because he was a soldier, he was a religious leader, and a prominent contributor to the Indian freedom movement. He was strongly opposed to the British rule, and led by him, he started boycotting the mill-made cloths. He requested our Indians not to wear the clothes from England, to use the khadi. He himself wore the khadi in spotless white. The turban, his turban was also white, and he started the non-cooperation movement. He even established his own post office. He started boycotting all the British rules, British dictates, British orders, and the people of Punjab readily agreed and contributed much And we all know that the history says that in 1860s, early 1860s, they were called kukas because they used to scream for their demands, and because of their screams, they were called kukas. And in early 1860s, 66 kukas were blown off with cannons by British forces at Malerkotla. 5 kukas were killed at Amritsar, 3 at Raipur, and 2 at Ludhiana. He was arrested and deported to Rangoon and sent to Andaman under life imprisonment, and was kept in the same cell in which Bahadur Shah Jafar was placed. And Baba Ram Singh Ji passed away on November 29, 1885, there in the exile. Kukas were against the cow slaughter. Now, we all know that during the regime of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the cow slaughter was banned, but the Britishers had started doing this of the cow slaughter, and Kukas were against this cow slaughter. He, Baba Ram Singh, even sent his lieutenant, one of the lieutenant was Bishan Singh, to Moscow in order to get support of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia in removing the British rule in India. Bishan Singh made contact with the then prince who had grown up, Maharaja Dulip Singh, who was working also in Moscow at that time. However, Russians were not keen on supporting Indian nationalists and in going to war against British Empire. Baba Ram Singh started the movement of non-cooperation as well as taking help from the outside world to allow the Britishers to leave India. Now, this part was accepted by later on by our great leader Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose when he had joined hands with the forces of Germany and Japan while reorganizing the Indian National Army with the help of General Mohan Singh Ji and Ras Behari Bose. Now, apart from Baba Ram Singh Ji, we all know the famous nationalist Sardar Ajit Singh, who resented the high-handedness of the British rule and openly criticized the British government. Sardar Ajit Singh was uncle of Shaheed Bhagat Singh. Britishers had made an anti-farmer rule in 1906. According to that rule, they can annex the land of any farmer or any individual who have their heirs. They had made a draconian law, and it was Ajit Singh who defied this law, and along with Lala Lajpat Rai, who was a well-known advocate at that time, they started a movement which became very famous. And there was one magazine, Banke Behari, who wrote a famous song, Pagdi Sambhal Jata. And the movement came out to be known as Pagdi Sambhal Jata movement in 1907 in favor of the farmers against the British rule. Most of the Kirtis, the workers, they joined this agitation. And basically the aim of the government in that movement was to enhance the land revenue and water charges in the canal irrigation area. And Britishers had foiled this movement. Lala Lajpat Rai and Sardar Ajit Singh were sent to exile, again sent to the same jail in Burma. After their release, Babaji Singh went to America, and Lala Lajpat Rai ji came back to Punjab. Babaji Singh ji met with Lala Hardyal there, and with most of the other Indians, they formed a Gadar party there. They started publishing a weekly magazine which was known as the Gadar. In the early years of 1910s, Indians and the rest of the world could know about the activities and the atrocities of the Britishers towards Indians. There was a one boy, Kartar Singh Saraba, who used to write frequently in that magazine. He was just 15 years old. He helped a lot for the cause of India's freedom struggle. And finally, he was executed in the jail of Lahore when he was just 19 years of age. He was a great nationalist, and we salute to this Shaheed Kartar Singh Ji Saraba. That magazine was in most of the Indian languages. It was published in Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu, Gujarati, Bengali, Pashto. Pashto was also spoken there in the northwest frontier province of the then India. Now, coming back to the Gadar movement, Lala Hardyal and Ajit Singh Ji, Kartar Singh Saraba contributed a lot for the cause of freedom struggle for India. Then in Punjab, in the early 1920s, Gurdwara reform movement also started. From 1920 to 25, Punjabis were involved in the liberation of the Gurdwaras. Although it was initially a religious movement, but later on it turned out to be a socio-religious movement. SGPC was formed, and it was thought that the Punjabis can have their own laws while dealing with the Gurdwaras. But the Britishers will not allow easily to make, because they were in power. So this movement, the religious movement, got its assistance from the national leaders of India. I may just quote Mahatma Gandhi. When the keys of Tosha Khana were given to Baba Khadak Singh, who was the leader of the at that time, Mahatma Gandhi had telegraphed Baba Khadak Singh. He said that Sikhs have won the first battle for the independence of India, and he congratulated the achievements of Punjabis in the Morcha was known as the Chabiyan da Morcha. Pandit Motilal Ji Nehru, he said that I salute the Akalis who have started the struggle for freedom and are fighting for it. Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, a great nationalist, said that the Guru Ka Bagh Morcha has given birth to the freedom movement which must lead us to Swaraj, the most popular word which Lokmanya Gangadhar Tilak has said, कि स्वराज हमारा जन्मसिद्ध अधिकार है, हम इसको लेकर ही रहेंगे. Lala Lajpat Rai said that freedom is our birthright. The Kalis are legitimate sons of Mother India who are fighting for her. The grand old man of India, Dadabhai Naoroji, said on this movement, Punjabis have shown us the way to freedom. No one can keep us slaves anymore. Now, before 1920, as I was referring to the Gadar movement, one more name comes into our mind, and that name is Son Singh Bhakna. He was the one who was the first president of Gadar party in United States. Actually, Sardar Son Singh wanted Lala Lajpat Rai to lead this movement, but Lala Lajpat Rai was here in India and he was rather more busy. So he, on the advice of Lala Lajpat Rai, Son Singh Bhakna was made the president, and Lala Hardyal, the great author, we all must have read his book. Lala Hardyal was MA at that time in 1905. He has written a very good book which is prevalent today also, hints for self-culture. Lala Hardyal was made the secretary of the Gadar party. So these are some of the names which always comes into our mind. Now the list is endless. The list is, because I told you that Punjabis started working for the freedom right from the day one when Punjab was annexed by the Britishers. Starting from Baba Ram Singh Ji, Kuka Andolan, Baba Son Singh Ji Pagna, Lala Hardyal, Kartar Singh Ji Saraba. There are so many freedom fighters who have contributed much for Sir Chotu Ramji for this. And how can we forget the great Shahid Bhagat Singh Ji? For Shahid, we'll discuss more about Shahid Bhagat Singh on 23rd March, which is the martyr day for Shahid Bhagat Singh Ji. We will discuss more on Shahid Bhagat Singh on 23rd March. So, we can also not forget the massacre of Jallianwala Bagh. And because of that massacre, the great Nobel Prize winner, Sir Rabindranath Tagore, relinquished his title of knighthood. And he also became a nationalist. So I thank our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Dr. Parvinder Singh Ji, for giving us an opportunity to celebrate India's freedom struggle, AZADI Ka AMRUT Mahotsav, as planned by our Indian organizations, Indian government, Punjab government, and this day is being celebrated in all the universities of India. I salute each and every freedom fighter who has contributed to India's freedom struggle, and we hope that whatever our freedom fighters have dreamt for India, a day will come when India will be free in total splits, and the words of Rabindranath Tagore will be echoed everywhere, where the mind is without fear, where the head is held high, into that heaven of freedom, Father, let my country away. And I'm sure a day will definitely come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for widening our vistas of knowledge related to freedom movement in Punjab. I now request our worthy Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Dr. Parvinder Singh, to kindly come and enlighten us with his views.
Thank you very much, Riyadpara University team, Registrar Dr. Navneet Chopra, HODs, dear students who are watching online. This India's freedom struggle, Bharat Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav. So, in the beginning, let's first pay our tributes. जो फिर से खुद को जगाते हैं, अनुशासन डंडा फिर घुमाते हैं, सुनहरा रंग है इस स्वतंत्रता का, शहीदों के लहू से ऐसे शहीदों को हम अपना सर झुकाते हैं. Ladies and gentlemen, भारत का अमृत महोत्सव, this is 3-week festival which will be organized all across the country beginning from today as mark of respect the 12th March, the Dandi March Day, and this grand event will have already been launched by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. I was watching him live when he started from Sabarmati Ashram today morning. So it is a commemoration of the activities which will be taking place in every state, in every union territory of India. Why we are celebrating this? This is the beginning of platinum year of Independence Day, 75 weeks in advance, 75 cities of the monumental significance, 75 types of activity will be taken, and this will be showcasing the glorious history, the culture, technological development, digital intervention. So 70 weeks prior to this Independence Day will ultimately be India at 2047. It's also the remembrance of great day where Government of India has already started their activities. So, my dear colleagues, this series will not only include the great martyrs but also the great saints of the country. The commemoration will also have the Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji celebrations, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh birthday, Subhash Chandra Bose birthday, inspiring leaders of the freedom struggle and unsung heroes who contributed immensely for the freedom of our country. This will have many activities, cycle rally, exhibition, digital show, yogas, essay competition, virtual events, social media campaign, along with the involvement of the empowered women of the country who had self-help groups, industry and trade groups, civics body involvements. So Indian movement, as we just heard from our Dr. Navneet Chopra and Registrar, it's a series of the historic events. So if you divide this freedom struggle in different parts, so the first part comes 1757 to 1856. Second part is 1857 to 1947. So the first nationalistic revolutionary movement that started from Bengal, we must be allowed to appear in the Indian civil service examination under the British rule. So it was followed by the civil rights, which were economical in nature. Earlier in the 20th century, so it witnessed a radical change in the progress of the independence movement by Lal, Bal, and Paul, Arvindo, etc. So thereafter, if we go by the sequence of the Indian freedom struggle, it was followed by self-rule struggle from 1920 by the Congress adoption the policy of Mahatma Gandhi ji, who was not in picture till 1917. So he started the non-violence civil disobedience movement. So nationalists like Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, B. Jatin, Surya Sen preached about this progress of the revolution. Not only these revolutionaries, but the poets and writers, including the Rabindranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, Kargil Nazrul, they used their literature, they used their poetry and speech for the political awareness among the masses of the country. Not only this, the feminists also, Sarojini Naidu, Preeti Lata Begum Rohitya, they also promoted the emancipation of the women to take part in the Indian freedom movement. B.R. Ambedkar ji, he championed the participation of the disadvantaged section of the society to participate in the Indian freedom movement. So World War I and II that saw a peak campaign of Quit India movement led by the Congress and Indian National Army led by Subhash Chandra Bose. India's struggle movement was mass-based. It was not confined to particular state of the country, but it was a heterogeneous society who was participating with constant ideology, movement spirit. It was targeted only for anti-colonial and which was supported by Democrats, Republicans, seculars, civil liberated societies, and of course, in 1930, it just became the socialist campaign, which ended in 1947 Act of Independence. So we know that the India was invaded by the Persians, Iranians, Parsis, who immigrated to India. Mughals remained permanently in India. It was the Genghis Khan, Mongolian, who and looted. Not only these, but also the Alexander Great, who came to India after the war with Porus, he left. Hyun Sang, the Chinese scholar, came to India for the pursuit of the knowledge. That was the time of the Nalanda and Takshila. Columbus wanted to come, but he reached to the shore of the America. Vasco da Gama, when he reached to Portugal for trading, French came, Britishers came. In 1757, the first East India Company was established, and they remained in existence till 1857. So British proclamation was declared by Queen Victoria on 1st November 1858 because it was followed this proclamation followed by the mutiny of 1857. So 99 years of the simmering and discontentment localized movements whether it was in South or in the Rajasthan or in Punjab, peasantry, local rulers, the protests were going on. Ultimately, the mutiny that turned the first war of the independence. Many of the freedom fighters, they gained the popularity and they were martyred, including the Rani Jhansi, Tate Tompe, Nana Sahib, and Bahadur Shah Jafar, destroying the craftsmanship of the country, religion and the caste system, soldiers and division of the society. So that was the only aim of the Britishers. The mutiny which broke out, it spread to the Bundelkhand, Allahabad, Agra, Delhi. Rebellion forces were captured and ultimately this movement it failed. So Bihar was affected and therefore the Peshwa and Tate Tope, they led the troops and ultimately the Hindu, Sikh, Muslims fought shoulder to shoulder just for one reason, that is the freedom of country. On 1st November, as I told, Queen Victoria took over, and that was the time of Lord Dalhousie in our country, who tried to gain the sympathy of the Indian masses by introducing various things, including education, railways, and many other things. So, with these small things, now we come to know that how the Indian struggle had progressed. And if we see the back history, as it is already conveyed by other speakers, the struggle had to pass through the difficult situations like Jallianwala Bagh, division of Bengal, non this movements, disobedience, which had to be called off in 1922 because of a reason. We know that the Mahatma Gandhi always he believed in the non-violence. So the civil disobedience, the post 1919 massacre of the Jallianwala Bagh, to boycott the government policies, education, courts, services, foreign goods, the Chori Chora and the revolt of the Muslim in Moflas in Kerala, Mahatma Gandhi ji was arrested. Now, what is required at that time? It was the modern economy which should have come, as well as the most defining chapter, the partition of India in 1947 after the Second World War, 1942, Quit India movement, that shaken the Britishers to talk about the only and only thing, the independent India. We know that in 1947, 1.4 million people were displaced, 2 lakh people, they died, and how this serious it was. And thereafter, after getting the gloriful moments of the independence, India, when India introduced the constitution in 1950, the first general election held in 1951. So after the independence, when we talk about the valor and the sacrifices of our great martyrs, our great freedom fighters, it is also our duty to remember how India has progressed as the largest democracy with their own election commission, with own their university grant commission, with the powerful and development nuclear and space country, robust foreign policy, federal structure of our country. So this all happened in post 1947, where we all feel proud of our ancestor who has given the independent India to us. 1951 followed by 1952, the first Asian Games. They were of India. 1956, the first nuclear reactor plant was the Apsara. 1958, the first movie of our country, that was in Mother India, that was nominated for the Oscar. So thereafter, the Panchshir was introduced by Pandit Jawaharlal Ji Nehru in 1962, Indo-Sino War, and the economy started flourishing. 1969, the nationalization of the banks. 1970, the White Revolution, where the dairy development program by V. Kuradian. So we became the having the surplus water milk with us. 1971, Bangladesh was liberated. 1972, important year, Shimla Agreement. 1973, Chepco movement, which happened in Chamoli. 1974, the first nuclear blast was tested at Pokhran. by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. 1975, first missile was launched. 1983, the India first time they won the World Cricket Cup. 1984 was the also historical year when Rakesh Sharma he landed on the moon. 1984, the tragedy happened of the Bhopal case. 1985, Shah Bano case. So why we talk about these things, because they have world recognition of our country. 1990, the Mandal Commission, where we have given the privilege to the OBCs. And again in 1991, we opened our economy for the globalization by then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. 98, another nuclear test, Pokhran 2, by then Prime Minister Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. We had to go for 1919 Kargil War. 2003 new states they came into existence, and that rose to the 28. 2005, another historical year of independent India, that is the Right to Information Act. 2008, the first moon exploration Chandrayaan 1 was launched. 2008, the first time Abhinav Bindra got the gold medal in the Olympics. 2009, another historical year for independent India, right to education. 2009, again, nuclear submarine missile. 2010, Commonwealth Games were hosted. 2011, World Cup was won second time when we defeated the Sri Lanka. 2014, 2013, mission of Mars that was launched by government. 2014, Telangana, another state which came into existence, followed by 2016, the year of demonetization. 17, that is the GST was there, and 2019, Mission Shakti anti-satellite missile was launched. Chandrayaan 2 launched. 2019, another historical decision by government to scrap the Article 370. So, dear friends, so when we talk about the freedom fighters struggle for independence India, we should not also forget the progress, the development, the growth of our country. So from poverty and lifting the people from the below poverty line to developing country, now towards the developed country. And recently, we feel proud that the COVID-19 vaccine, which has been manufactured in our country, we are in position to supply to the Canada and other European countries. So hats off to our people, our citizens, our scientists, our engineers, our doctors, our space scientists, our diplomats, those who are taking care of our country. It is our duty of as educationists. So let's preserve and protect the independence which has been given by the blood of our warriors. That will be the real celebration of independence struggle. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Sir has highlighted the list of activities which are related to the celebration of 75 years of independence of India, and he has also narrated India and also told us beautifully what progress the country has made after independence, which has given it a worldwide recognition. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your views. I now request Dr. Neena, Dean Student Welfare, to propose the vote of thanks.
Respected Dr. Pravinder Singh ji, our worthy Vice Chancellor, Ryatbara University, Professor B.S. Satyal ji, worthy Registrar, Ryatbara University, and the management of Ryatbara University, all the heads sitting here as well as those attending online, and all the students of Ryatbara University and other staff. We are thankful to the organizing team, Dr. Navneet Chopra, heading the University School of Education, who has organized this function on behalf of the university, Riyadh University, and this program has been organized in view of the freedom, 75 years of freedom, that is going to start the program in 2021, and it is going to go for 1 year. And before that, as we all know that this program has been launched today by our worthy and this program is going to energize the whole country for all the activities and for different points that they have earmarked for the celebration. And this is going to go throughout India in all the states and all the Indians in different categories and schools and colleges and other. We are going to all work together for celebrating this movement. And we are thankful to the government of India who has enlightened us to celebrate this very movement, and we are proud of our country that we are all who are standing here have reached this stage even after so much of struggle. And we know that from our parents who are still telling of partition of India in 1947, who were migrated from Pakistan to India. And this is all we should learn from the stories which have been narrated today by the Vice Chancellor Sir and Professor Satyalji, and the poetry has been recited by Singh, head of the pharmacy department. So thank you again on behalf of the management of Riyadh University, Sardar Govinda Singh Bharaji, and our other senior staff of Riyadh University campus. Thank you. Let us all stand for national anthem. नायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंग, तब शुभ नामे जागे, तब शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाए सब जय गाथा। जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे। भारत माता की जय।
पक्का